All right, guys, go ahead and start and just test it a little bit. Just make sure everybody can hear us.
Good morning, everybody. Can you guys hear us okay?
Drop in the chat if they can.
Yeah, give us a quick hello in the chat. We'll know you're here.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Perfect.
Getting some more people coming in, and then we'll get it started. We got fans in the stands, as it were. We like to do this as a in the room type of thing for some great conversation that way. But we've opened it up to Zoom so more people can be involved and listen and chat away. Let us know what you're thinking, and we'll answer your questions.
I'm just gonna maybe give them another couple minutes.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and get started.
10:02. We'll keep it. 10:03 and a half.
People were.
Where's everybody listening from today? Where y'all joining us from?
Drop that down in the chat. See where you guys are from.
I'm curious how many are triangle and how many.
Yeah, so we got our whole crew here. We got our triangle realtors. We got our coast realtors. We got our referral groups. This went out to all around the country. So we got great information for you, and love to see where you guys are coming from. Amy's out in Wake Forest. Upington, Wilmington. We got some fun going on.
Wake Forest is my neighborhood. It's where I've been for a long time. I love it.
How long have you been at Wake Forest?
Like 20 years.
That shows your age, Hunter.
Maybe actually a little bit longer than 20 years, actually, if I'm doing the math. Like 26 years.
Bay Area, California. It's early there.
Too early. We're going to make it worth your while.
Yeah.
But get some coffee.
Yeah. A lot of it.
So you were you moved there when you were 6?
Yeah, that's exactly what I moved there. That's the thing. That's the age. Yeah.
Give us just a second. We're also going to be going on Facebook Live. So if for some reason the Zoom disconnects, which fingers crossed it won't, you can jump on Facebook, find Rich Bergroff, and he will be on there. There we go.
I'm everywhere today. Here, I'm there. I'm all over the place.
Okay.
And we got Deb behind the scenes, man, in the chat. So bring it on.
Glad you added Zoom. Awesome.
Yeah, we are glad you were here.
Jennifer, you want to make that drive from California to Cary? Come on out.
Could have left yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay. One day.
That's awesome.
One day you will, or it's going to take you one day. I think it might take you longer than
I'm about to say, I'm going to try that one day. I'm going to Orlando in a couple weeks. I'm dreading doing that in a day.
That's funny.
Well, as we're getting rolling, I just kind of want to give you guys a quick welcome. Thank you guys for being here. We'll do quick intros in a second, but I want to tell you a little about what we're doing here today. Our whole goal here is we want to have people in the room, have you guys online, getting together. We really just want to share some good information. Our whole goal here is just for the industry to be better. You get a quick about I'm good on letting my personality out pretty quick. I don't like frustrating things that don't have to be frustrating. So we can all do better. We can all grow together. There's information that we have we can share. We want to hear from you guys what's working with you so we're all just better at this and we're all good transactions, which is why that is my perfect intro to Hunter Boyd, because whenever I'm doing a loan with Hunter and the Sherriano team, there is a certain point in that conversation where I check in to make sure everything is okay. And they say, has it ever not been? And it's never not.
It's like I need to knock on wood. So hard.
But you make it happen for me. So.
Yes, my name is Hunter Boyd. I'm the Director of Sales for the Sherriano team. We are based out of Cary, North Carolina. We are actually in one of our conference rooms for this today. Thank you for joining us in person. That was a long hike for you. And thank you.
Almost as far as Jennifer.
Yeah, almost as far as Jennifer. I mean, truly. And then thank you guys for joining online today. We're excited to talk. We do want this to be engaging and we want it to be interactive. So if you have questions that come up throughout the process, you want us to elaborate a little bit more, kind of give some feedback on what you're seeing as well about what we're talking about, please drop that in the chat. We want to hear from you guys. We want it to be very informational, but we also want to be specific to what you're seeing as well.
Excellent, excellent. So today's topic, as you see on the board, rates aren't the problem, messaging is. We're going to talk about the conversation we get so many times, like, hey, what's the rate? So like anytime I'm around more than 3 people, someone's asking me what the rates are, and I'm like, hey, just talk about it.
Yeah, we hear that a lot too. It's been such a big thing since COVID, really. I feel like rates have been just that much more important. It's been such a focus. We saw historically low rates during that time. We have seen also some very high rates since that time, and they're starting to come back down. And whenever rates change a dramatic way, it hits the 5 o'clock news. And then when it hits 5 o'clock news, that's generally when we start hearing the questions. We know about it a little bit beforehand, but most people don't see what we see every day. I'm not sure how many people are watching economic data calendars like I am, things like that. But when it does get on your local news, people start to raise their hand, ask questions. And so we hear that a lot when those things happen. And we're kind of excited to talk about what we're hearing and what we're saying.
Yeah. I think that rates are a thing that people end up talking about because they want to get the conversation started. They really don't know where.
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, what are the rates now? I have yet to have a client who has said, I'm moving out of my house if the rate is this.
Yeah.
It's always something else.
Yep. Absolutely. Every buyer who's purchasing or selling and purchasing, there's going to have specific pain points to them. Cost is obviously a big pain point. And so they want to know how that rate affects their monthly payment. And what they don't understand is, there's so much more that goes into a rate than just what the rate is. I'm having a different conversation with a 25-year-old who's buying their first home that's most likely going to be out of this home in 5 years than I have with a 75-year-old who says, I never want to sell again and I never want to refinance again. So, we have to make sure that every client gets their specific needs met. And we go, engineer our conversations around those needs as we discuss, as we hop on a call with them and get more information to kind of understand where they're at in their life.
Yeah. Now, Shannon, since you're here, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Absolutely.
Because we were talking about when you mentioned the 25-year-old buyer versus the 75-year-old buyer. And we were having a conversation not that long ago about the 25-year-old buyer who was looking at things, who doesn't know rates other than the 2%, 4%. So
Correct.
When they see the rates now, it's a whole different conversation than what we see from the guy, the 75-year-old guy who's like, well, the first house I bought, my rate was 18%.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
So that's you're seeing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think for what I'm seeing is that, especially for me, I purchased my home 4 years ago. I'm 30 now, so I was 26, and of course rates were great. So it was a fight to get the home that you wanted, but that's when I was introduced to the conversations around interest rates and mortgage and what does this look like? Because I was, 24, 25 looking to buy a home. So there isn't really education about it in school necessarily. So that's when I started to have that education. And when I started, rates were at 3%. So I thought that was normal, and then leaving that, it's not necessarily normal. It never really was at that rate. And this isn't really a new normal. This is just what normal rates look like. And I think that that's a different perspective, for people in that age range.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See, and that gets us right into the just waiting part and the safeness of wait and all that stuff. And Debbie had a weird look on your face. Sorry about that, little technical difficulties there. But yeah, different people see different perspectives. And a lot of times if they don't have that historical data to say, hey, these were not normal rates. This is like, I don't want to get into like, this is the world, this is what it was. It's just, they're not normal rates. So they start deciding to wait and say, oh, we'll wait until rates come down. I hear that from people all the time. Do you have a crystal ball?
I do not. If I did, I would not be standing here with you today. I would have retired like 4 years ago. Yeah, there's no way to predict it. There's no way to time it. I think in our industry, we get caught up a lot on, catchy lingo and catchy phrases of, everyone was saying, date the rate, marry the house a few years ago.
Yeah.
Rent, interest rate on rent is 100% and things, and those are great points to make. But I think a lot of people in this day and age, they want to see the math of it. if you can explain the math of it and explain how appreciation works, what the average appreciation is in this area, and then what your interest rate is and how much your principal is being paid towards every month. Those are real numbers that, we're not talking about feelings. We're not talking about, what you kind of hope to happen. We're talking about historical data that shows how this moves in this direction, how this moves in this direction, and how that piece benefits you compared to nothing benefiting you in rent. I think that's how we've tried to, on our team, change the conversation a little bit from the catchy sayings to this is the math of it. Math doesn't lie. Numbers are numbers. The math of your area is appreciating in this area. The math of your payment each month is lowering your mortgage loan amount every month by this amount. And if you decide to stay in this house for 5 years, this is where you'd be on your amortization schedule. And this is what you could expect to average out on appreciation year over year. When you show somebody real hard facts like that, it like the light kind of turns on. You said, they don't teach this stuff in school. Mm-hmm. I hear that comment a lot. Like, why didn't we talk about this? Like, why did I have to know the Pythagorean theorem? But like, this wasn't talked about, why do I need to know about the nucleus of a cell? But this wasn't talked about. I hear that so often. Like, those are real things I've heard. And so it's, when you show people how it actually works to their benefit, when you take the time, you invest in that client as if you were investing. That is your only client. Every single call needs to be discussed that way. This is your only client. What would you give your only client that you're going to talk to this month? How much time would you give them? If you give them a level of attention, it's really hard to just not go with the math and ignore that.
Well, and that's the beauty of it. And really what it comes down to is that relationship, whether it's with us and with our partners. And I say it all the time, like we're only good because of the great people we have around us. And that to me begins and ends with communication. It begins and ends with really understanding. So yeah, you hear all this stuff all the time. We have it up on the screen of the rates will come down, things like that, like all the catchphrases that you hear of like why you want to get somebody to get in the action. But really understanding where they're coming from and hey, why are you looking to move? What's going on in your world? How can we help you? And then educating them on what does it look like long term, I think is super helpful. I'd love to have you guys in the chat some of the things that you guys are seeing out there. Whether it's local here or it's California and some other place where you guys are in. I'd love to hear what are you guys seeing? What's your market looking like? Stuff like that.
California's got to be a different market than
absolutely, yeah. Jennifer, you got to be seeing some stuff different than we see here. And just for some historical data on that, if you looked at the last 40 years here in the Triangle, you're seeing like consistent 5% growth year over year. I always tell people, just take out the COVID years because that was just weird. But and I was looking up, I was trying to find a graph, which I had that had the last 40 years of interest rates going like this and the last 40 years of home values going up like that. What you
got? So what buyers actually need? Let's kind of discuss that. They're not looking for reassurance, kind of going back to the math. They're looking for clarity. How's this actually going to work out for them? They need options, they need scenarios, they need trade-offs, they need control. One of the things that we kind of talk about when you have a buy and a sell at the same time is, do they have the option to buy without selling? Giving them that control, giving them that freedom. We have a feature on our conventional loans called Recast, and it's become extremely popular over the last couple of years, where the buyer puts 5% down on the new purchase, moves into that home, higher payment, lower closing costs, lower cash to close. But once they sell their existing property, they're allowed to take the proceeds from that loan, from that home proceeds, apply it to their new mortgage, contact their servicer, and the payment is re-amortized as if they had all that money up front. That has been a huge win on the mortgage side in the last couple of years, just because people need to place non-contingent offers in our market. It's that a lot of places, even new construction, you're seeing they won't take a contingent offer at all. I'm working with a client right now who is trying to figure out how to get this done. Builders going to turn it down. She has no path right now without selling that home. And so we're kind of working through the numbers and how to make it work for. But being able to do those types of things, allowing the buyer to be in control of what their timeline looks like, of what they are willing to wait on selling that home to make the most money from the sale. That's really big right now. I feel like in our market, that's a conversation I'm having consistently.
Yeah. And that's, again, back to conversation, back to understanding your client's needs, what's important to them. Again, I've never had a client that said, at this interest rate, I'm going to move. There's always something going on. Lately, I feel like I'm getting both extremes. I get we want to grow our family, so we need a bigger house, or our family is splitting up and we need to go that way. And on all of that, those are the types of things, the life stuff that happens. So we have those conversations all the time of like, okay, well, what is important to you? Like, let's work with that first. And the big part of that is, what can you afford?
Mm-hmm.
And having that conversation, I mean, everybody's just had that conversation early, and I think, we've talked about it many times of like, I'm like, yeah, I talked to Hunter, and everyone's like, oh, like all of a sudden you feel the wall go up. And I'm like, he's not going to tell you something bad. Like, no one wants to talk about money. But for me, that's the information we need to have, because I want to know what's important to them so we can find the right place for them, but also where their budget is. So when they say I can afford here and they're pre-approved to here, they're only looking down here so that they can do the things they need to do.
Yeah, I think not only what their budget is on my side, but what they can afford and what they want to afford are usually very different numbers in one direction or the other.
Yeah.
You have buyers who can afford so much, but they're like, I'm not going to do that. I need to be able to take my vacation every year and not have to worry about it.
Right.
If something happens, I need to have a certain amount saved that I don't want to touch to purchase this home. And then you have buyers who can't afford as much, but they're $1 million shopping, and that's just not their reality right now. So providing that clarity to them, but also to you, allows you to focus on the reality of their situation and what they can actually get into, and that way you kind of guide them into, hey, this is where you're at right now, whether you're up here or down here, and this is your options available to you. I think that saves a ton of time, a lot of time on the road, a lot of gas, just ping-ponging all over the place because there's no clarity in what they're actually going to get into in the first place.
So for those of you that know me, you may have heard this story before because I tell it all the time. And hopefully my clients are watching and they're going to laugh at me for telling their story yet again. I had clients a few years ago, and we looked at what the budget was that they could afford. But they were like, we only want to spend this amount. And they had considerably more that they were able to spend, but they had set a line. And they saw a house, it was out in Apex. The wife loved this house. She's like, can I go see this house? Well, we want to go check it out. We think it's going to be perfect for us. And it was about $5,000 over the line that they put in, well within what they could afford. But $5,000 over what they said was their bottom line. And I was like, you told me your bottom line is here. So unless you guys are going to tell me that you are okay increasing your budget, I don't see value in showing you this house. And we've had many conversations. I know them well. They trusted me, and they're like, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. About a week later, price of the house went down $5,000 into their budget. She calls me back up. She goes, "Did you see the price of the house went down? Can we go see it now?" And end of the story. Saw the house, was perfect for them. We got it within their budget, and it is about 6 years later, and they're still living there today. And that's the thing. Like, I feel like on our side, like, that's us being an advocate for people. I know we all fight the stuff people see on TV, the HGTV stuff. Well, here's a unemployed writer and a cocktail waitress, and their budget is $7 million. Yeah. You're like, okay, well, and then they show them the house, and it's like, well, they saw this $10 million house, and they were able to get it for $7.5 million. Like, we all know that's not the real world, but that's what people see. So we're on the opposite end of that. Like, hey, where's your budget? We don't want you to have a house and not be able to do anything else with your life.
Yeah. I think when I was thinking about this question, what I'd kind of go with, I actually thought about the communication that you and I have almost as much as I have communication with the client, because something that you do that I really appreciate is before you send over a lead, there's generally a phone call.
Yeah.
Hey, this is their situation. This is what they're going through. This is what, their next steps are. And that allows me to kind of help guide them in a financial way as well. Clients that are about to have a baby or about to have their third baby. Well, I don't want you to use all of your money. I say it, and my team is probably sick of me saying it, but I tell a story about when I bought my first house. I lived in apartments for most of my life growing up. And when I purchased my first home, it was on a little over an acre of grass. And I realized the day after I moved in and closed on my home that I was now responsible for cutting that grass, because up until that point, somebody else had been doing it for me. And so, when I'm having conversations with a first-time home buyer, a growing family, I tell that story as a point to relate to them of, hey, you don't want to use all of your money, because the day after I bought my first house, I had to go buy a riding lawnmower for $1,000. And I'm really glad that my loan officer back then told me, don't use every dollar for this purchase, because something's going to come up. When I have a conversation with a client who's having a baby, hey, look, I've got 2 kids of my own. And one thing I can guarantee you is there's going to be an unexpected expense somewhere. I don't want you to drop all of your money into this process, because I want you to feel comfortable after you close that if something comes up, you still have that money on the side. That is so appreciated from a buyer standpoint, in my experience, because I'm seeing where they're at. I'm seeing their reality. I'm not seeing the interest rate. I'm not seeing the mortgage. I'm seeing them as a person. And I'm seeing their scenario as a real situation that they're going to have to live through. And I can really only do that effectively early on. Of course, I'll eventually get the information out of them, but that may change the entire script of what I've been talking about. I can't do that as early as possible if Rich doesn't give me a call before and tell me what their situation is, what their background is, and allow me to start planning and thinking ahead of what this buyer is going to need for their situation.
Exactly. I'd love to hear from you guys and in the room of when you guys are talking to your buyers, even before you're getting them in touch with your loan officers. What are the types of conversations you guys are having? What are the things you're saying to them? What are you finding out beforehand?
Yeah, I think personally, the rate conversation, because I'm definitely in the market more first-time home buyers, the rate conversation is the lead. People are in their, young 30s or upper 20s, and they're like, oh, well, when is it going to go back down to the 3s? And, it's more of an education of this is kind of historically what it looks like, and that this is not necessarily a new normal. This is just how this works. And also bringing, to your point, the appreciation of homes. And I think that is, I just try to educate as much as possible, because I do think a lot of people, unless they're in this world, they don't know or they don't understand that, okay, well, the appreciation of the home can kind of offset that, that cost, I guess, that they might see in that interest rate. So I would say, to me, that's definitely the lead in my conversations right now.
Completely.
And then understanding, okay, where are you, renting, and do you even want to rent? What is that looking like for you? What, amenities are you appreciating with rent versus owning your own home? Because that is another thing, as you mentioned with, oh, I have to mow my own lawn now. I do have a good amount of buyers who are like, oh, I'm in an apartment and I like that they do everything for me. I don't want to maintain my own home. So, well, then maybe a townhouse or a condo or something with those amenities around you would be a better fit than an actual home.
Yeah.
Rather than that, picture of the perfect first home might look different than what you thought it could be. So
I feel like in real estate, whether it's on the representative side or the mortgage side, we start our job as teachers before we actually get into the main thing we're doing.
Yes.
We're getting them up to speed of where they need to be. Sometimes it's a very long conversation.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of a year-long process with a couple who reached out and said, hey, we're not where we need to be, and we know that, but we were told that you could help us get there. And our timeline isn't until the beginning of next year. We want to know, is this too soon? One, always no. Yeah. Absolutely not. Well, I'm a planner by nature.
Yeah.
But two, can you tell us what you see? We did a soft credit pool, so they didn't have any negative effects on their credit. And we're able to, I wrote them a small Bible of like, this is what I would do in your position, step by step, to get you ready for next February. And that is a extreme version of what you do with almost every client.
Yeah.
You don't start every client a year out, but there is a general level of education that has to go in first. before you can actually start to show them homes, have them be an active buyer.
Yeah, absolutely.
You had something good on there. I totally forgot, but no, I got it. No, because I was thinking about that part, because I was thinking of a conversation that you had with one of my clients like 5 years ago.
Okay.
And she came in, she was like, I need to figure out what I can afford. And I tell people all the time, like, have a plan. And one of her things was her student loans were student loan debt, and that was affecting her ability to buy at different levels. And the conversation that you had with her, and I tell this story all the time, is like, hey, say you get $100 bonus at work or $500 bonus at work. You're probably going to think, like, let me put that in and pay down the student loan debt because that's going to help me better. And you're like, well, take half of that, put it into pay the student loan debt, put the other half in savings so you have a down payment too.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff too. Like, let's make sure that we're looking at all angles of it, because people hear stuff all the time. They think they know. It's not their fault. They have somebody who bought a house 30 years ago telling them how it's supposed to be. They see stuff on TV. They hear things on the news. They just don't know. So to be able to not just say, what's a rate? Are you qualified? Are you not? Having a game plan to get into things, I think, makes a lot of sense.
Well, there is no general mortgage advice that is good for everybody.
Right.
Even as specific as, like, we tell most people, don't open any new credit cards. Don't do anything like that right now because you don't want to have any dings on your credit. But that's not even a general rule that you can tell every single person, because if I'm talking to a 19-year-old who's got a great job and a set down payment savings, but 000 credit scores, I'm going to tell him, you need to open a credit card to get a credit score to pop. It takes about 90 days, but that is advice for that very specific client that cannot be relayed to every single person. So, when you hear things on the TikTok, when you're on the Facebook or the Instagram, whatever the case may be, and a client hears, this is great information for every buyer to know. They don't know that they need to take that information with a grain of salt. They don't know that, they're talking about Houston, Texas right now and the market down there. They're just saying they just had a hashtag or a search come up based on their algorithm, because we're all being watched. And, they think that that's just good knowledge for them. And so when you get into a one-on-one conversation, you can kind of merge them into the lane they should be, I think is the best way to say it. Hey, absolutely, you should not open any credit cards. But little Joey, 19 years old, I have no credit scores for you right now, and you need a credit score in order to get most loan types. There are some out there, but it's going to negatively impact your monthly payment. Do we have to buy right now? If we have to buy right now, that's a different conversation. If we don't have to buy right now, little Joey's got 6 months where he's living. He can move on after that. Well, great. We are 6 months from from the start of your home purchase. Let's get a credit score to pop. Let's start making active use of that credit card and paying it off every single month. You're not paying any interest on it, but you are showing creditors and credit report agencies that you have the ability to repay, which is one of the things that I have to show an underwriter is little Joey has the ability to repay.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's good stuff.
Thanks, man.
I have a quick question just to kind of tie off that. How do you guys pass the ball? So let's say you have a client. What is the easiest way to start the conversation with the buyer, pass the ball to Hunter, to whoever that mortgage lender team is? What does that look like and feel like?
That's a great question, because I was actually just about to go there.
Solid.
So, way to tee that up. So
It's almost like they know each other.
That's not even in the script. But no, because to me, and it goes into that communication piece of it, and like we just did our last huddle that we did, the last 2 huddles we did on AI, and how that was being used in the world, and how, to me, that helps the technology piece, helps the relationship piece. Yeah. But it starts with that relationship. When we sit down with somebody, our conversation is, tell us what's important to you in a house. Usually they think they have a budget, they have an idea, and that type of stuff. And that starts that conversation. But we're looking at things, and I tend to find that when people don't know what they're looking for, they go with what they think they're supposed to be looking for. Mm-hmm. What's the rate? I need X amount of square footage. I need X amount of this. And that's great if you want to, like, we have a questionnaire that gets that conversation started. But also on that conversation, on that questionnaire is how do you live? Like clients who have kids who are want to be close to the soccer fields because they're running around, things like that, or they travel a lot. Or I
Disney.
Disney.
Disney every year.
We got a budget for that kind of stuff. So it's getting that information and understanding that part. Like, tell me more about what's important to you.
Yeah.
So that way I can tee you up and say, hey, I'm going to have this person call you. Like, this is what's going on. They're going through this, or this is their plan. So that way you can have that conversation. And I'm a big let the expert be the expert person.
For sure.
I'm not going to get into mortgage stuff. Like, we're having that conversation. I'm like, I got my guy, and they're going to do it right. And that's kind of that handoff.
That's the same way for us. When I have a buyer say, well, do you think this house is worth, $329? Well, I'm going to refer you back to your agent on this question because they're the one looking at comps and I'm not. I'm looking at the math of loan to value and debt to income and asset reserves and things like that, but that's really not my lane. I want you to get the best information possible. I want you to get the best feedback possible, and Rich is going to be your person for that. So I appreciate that you kick it to us. We kick it right back to you.
Absolutely.
Similar question. But yeah, and also I think, for most clients, I think you send an email introduction to me and we do it that way if that's the comfort level. But very recently you reached out and said, hey, I've got a client who's very nervous. She's going through a lot right now. What does your Thursday look like? And I'm going to let her know and you're going to call her. And I got her name, got her number, got a little bit of background on her, called her at 2:00 on Thursday, and she's pre-qualified, ready to go, and she's out searching for homes now. So it really kind of comes down to what that buyer's comfort level is. If it's a general conversation and they're comfortable with getting introduced to a lender, an email introduction is great. Absolutely. I will not be sending the link to apply immediately. We don't believe in doing that on our team. It's actually written into like our bylaws, I think, at this point, that we do not send the link unless they ask for it up front. We always ask for a conversation first. So when we respond, we thank the agent. We say hello to the client, and we let the client know what a wonderful agent they're working with. We want them to know not only do they refer us, but if I was in a situation of referring the agent, I'm referring right back to them. We want the agent to feel, or the client to feel, very confident on the agent side and lender side. And we want them to feel like there is a true teamwork here. Rich's availability is my availability. I've talked to Rich at 8:00 on a Friday night. I've talked to Rich at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. So when he is working, we are working. And I want that client to know that, because in a lot of transactions, I think clients feel like there's two different sides of this. They don't know that we are working as a team to successfully accomplish the smoothest closing they've ever heard of. And so we try and reiterate that when we get on the initial phone call. We want to get information about their comfort levels, want to get information about their availability for cash to close, monthly payment, all those things. But we also want to reiterate the fact that who we're working with, or who they're working with, is a true member of our team, just as anybody else in this office is. Rich is a member of our team as well.
And that's hugely important. Again, I said it before, I'll say it 100 times. It's the team that we work with that makes us good. And we know our lane, we know what we need to be doing. Having the right people to be able to have those conversations, to also understand our values and the way we do things. There are plenty of people out there that do a lot of things, whether we're talking about mortgages, we're talking about home inspections, or we're talking about closing attorneys, all of that. Like, we have the group that's going to make sure, and I'm sure you guys all do too, have that team that works well with you, so you can have those conversations. They align with what you're talking about, and that makes it so much easier. That relationship means a huge thing. And yeah, that starts with, why are you thinking about buying a house? And we started this, and we kind of talked about, we kind of got onto rates for a while, and I want to, and kind of going back to Shannon, your thing on like, hey, you have some people that are like, I only know 3% rate. What is that? And I think with a lot of these things, people look at one particular thing and they look at it in a bubble.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, rates. What are rates? Well, somebody told me I should be asking about rates. So let me ask about rates. Well, do you want all the other stuff that went along with the low rates around here? And the reason those rates were low is because we were in the middle of a pandemic. And in addition to the rates being low, the inventory was low. So I don't know about you. I would rather have a higher rate that if the rates went down, I have an option on, than to have a low rate and 10 houses on the market where there are fights in the parking lot to go buy this house. I remember telling clients numerous times when you'd see how much over the asking price and over the appraised value these houses were selling for. I'm like, don't be the first crazy person in your neighborhood. If you're gonna be the fourth crazy person, I could find 3 other people and say that this is the value. But so
It's a good line. That's really good.
And it was. I don't want my clients, I'm sure you guys don't either. I don't want them overspending, but I also want them to know. I also know there were some other agents out there who are like, hey, this is just the way it has to be. Well, I don't want to tell somebody that's the way it has to be, that you have to pay $50,000 out of your pocket before you get into anything having to do with their loan. So it starts with that conversation.
I got a question for you, Hunter.
Yeah.
When it comes to agents educating their clients, what would be your best recommendation for agents to do this? Obviously, they don't need to go dig into the nitty gritty, but when they talk about the basics, should they do social media videos? Should they send emails to their clients? What do you think would be the best method to start educating their network?
Yeah, I think, when it comes to rates specifically, you have to be so careful because there's so much legal surrounding interest rates. But you can always say what the market's doing. And the market for the past year and a half has been declining. And so consistently pushing that kind of phrase of rates are going down is a lot safer from a legal standpoint. And it's also more encouraging from a buyer standpoint than just rates are at a number more than 4 and lower than 7, or something like that. They don't really know what that means for them, but they do know that rates going down is better for their monthly payment. So speaking in a way that they're going to understand, keeping yourself compliant, keeping yourself safe from any type of violations is very important for that. I think social media is a very powerful tool. Reels are super important right now, especially since the evolution of TikTok. Reels has been such a big push by Instagram, Meta, or Facebook, whatever you want to call it, to get exposure, to get views, and to get capture rates, things like that. I always recommend a reel. Deborah does all of my reels. I do nothing besides stand there and do what she tells me to do. But I do provide the knowledge and the information for that reel. And so, making sure that you're pushing the content that's going to be pushed by the algorithm as well is super important. But back to rates, you really want to be very careful to stay in compliance. I think using verbiage that a regular buyer is going to understand, using, hey, using a real life example. I just put a client in a $350,000 house. The lender was able to make their payment under $1,800 a month. Saying things like that, completely safe, completely okay. There's a lot that goes into when you give a specific interest rate, though. So I want everyone to really kind of take that away from me, because we hear that a lot of, can I say this? And I say no a lot. Making sure that you're staying compliant, giving real life stories that will be relatable to your clients. That's really important. And emails are great. Emails are wonderful as well. But my biggest thing right now, I think, is reels and video content. And Deborah told me to say that. Just kidding.
I'm surprised you actually didn't say the power of a text, because you have had some amazing success by just sharing.
That's true.
A knowledge text.
That is true.
I have to put that out there.
That is true. So I do like doing a little video, and I'm usually walking around my neighborhood trying to get my steps in, and I talk about what's happening in the market that day. From a lender's perspective, that has been very engaging from client and agent response, because how I will structure those videos is a copy and paste method. This is not something I'm speaking to anyone specifically about, but this is just general market knowledge. If you can do that same thing, and especially if you can make it copy and pasteable, I've seen people take that video and post it on their social media. I've seen people take that video and share it and say, hey, I just sent this to 3 buyers that have been on the fence for 6 months. Stuff like that is really engaging and really helpful.
We did have a comment from Jennifer. She said, yes, teamwork, edifying each other is crucial.
Hey.
Love it. That's so true.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Look at that. We appreciate that. But absolutely, because I mean, I think the hardest part for you guys on your side is you start talking to people about money and they feel like they're standing in front of you in their underwear.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, it's like, how do you get them to a comfort level? I don't know if watching some of Hunter's videos, especially ones you do around Christmas time, can get you more comfortable, but you're going to realize he's a real guy. And, you know, but
Everybody's gonna go look at our.
Yeah,
Go
our
look at
viewer
your
count's
videos.
gonna go through the roof on that.
but it's true. Like, I think that there's a lot to that. Of like, hey, there are plenty of places where you can click on here and get a rate. And I'm not going to say mention any names, but people might think that they can rock it off to go and buy a house.
Yeah.
And well, rocket yourself back down to earth because there's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And but having real people and having that relationship, so the trust that they build in us first, that these are our guys, that you're going to have a conversation with them. I think it's great that you don't say, hey, fantastic, here's the application, fill that out, and then we'll talk to you. That you want to know what's going on with them just as much as we do. And kind of get that barrier down a little bit, say, hey, it's okay. I mean, I remember buying a house and I'm like, I was consulting at the time, so I knew like what, gee, I try to make my income look as low as possible. Or these guys are going to look at me and be like, what are you thinking? Like, it's scary.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also that personal approach to rates and a personal approach to structure is super helpful from a client's perspective because, I mean, this week alone, I've talked to two people who said, you've gone into so much more detail than what the other person did. I wasn't even their first call, but they were so dissatisfied with that first call. Now, 90% of buyers who apply with a lender will go with the first lender they speak to. But these people were so dissatisfied twice in, Wednesday? Twice in 3 days. This has happened to me where they were so dissatisfied with the conversation. And I'm not calling any names. I'm not saying where they come from. They may rhyme with Willow, but I'm not going to say that out loud. But, it does help, when you can approach that person as a human. I can speak to my own personal stories and experiences because I am now old enough to have those. And I think it makes it, yourself, it makes that money just that more realistic, that much more easy to talk about because, I don't come from it from a, just a purely processing standpoint. I come from it from a relationship standpoint. I want to know what's important to them.
Well, and to that, I want to mention a conversation you had just this week where I had a client last year and they were buying new construction. And I always say, hey, I like our guys are our guys for a reason, but with new construction, I'm sure you guys all see it. They have their lenders, they have the preferred lenders, some of the builders have their own mortgage companies and all that. And sometimes they will provide rates that you can't touch. Absolutely. Or incentives you can't touch. You're not buying somebody a refrigerator to get their business.
No, I'm not.
Nor should you. And so, but I know we've had the conversation many times where you'll look at, I'm like, have a second opinion.
Yeah.
And look at, okay, you're getting this deal from the lender that's working with the builder. Long term, does it make sense? And I know there have been many times where you have said, you know what, that's a pretty good deal. I would go with it and not try to push in to get that business. And then just last week, I had a client, that same client, the builder came back to me. He's like, I want to start buying investment properties. And he's like, I'm going to talk to Hunter. Called you up. So what did he say to you?
He said that I wish I had gone with you. The deal was too good not to, but it was the worst experience I could have ever had. And I'm really looking forward to having a different experience with you. He said, I told Rich like halfway through the build, like I know we wouldn't be having these issues if I'd gone with Hunter. And he let me know that Rich confirmed that. But also like, that's kind of the partnership is the partnership outside of the reality of interest rates.
Right.
And if I can make your transaction that much smoother because I'm giving that client guidance on interest rates that they know at the end of that call, I'm not going to have anything to do with, but they are so much more comfortable with the numbers now and that they are getting a good deal that now they are a happier client for Rich and a smoother client for Rich. Well, that's great. I want Rich to have happy, smooth clients, but also if he has happy, smooth clients, he has the ability to go get more clients and hopefully those clients come to me. So, it's all about working together. Rates are a reality for sure, but whether I'm getting the deal or not, I'm still giving the same advice, still giving the same guidance. And sometimes it does work out where a year later they come back and say, I'm buying an investment property with you. Let's talk numbers today.
Right.
So
now, again, for those of you who don't know, I grew up in New Jersey. So setting the tone for what my comment I'm going to make now is that I will tell people all the time, like, yeah, get the best rate, get the best opportunity you can. I'm like, don't go to Big Vito because you might break your legs. But you find that too good to be true is often too good to be true. And you see that whether you know all the places that are going to give it too good to be true, and you can't get the guy on the phone when you sit at the closing table. But I tell them at least talk to my guys because they're going to have a conversation. They're going to be straight up with you. And I think we talked a lot about the value of the relationship, and I think that's the most important thing. I hope you guys are getting that because I only said it 20 times. That the rates are the rates, and we can talk about all that stuff. But it's that making the whole experience that person is getting the best that they can get. To me, is the most important part.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume it makes it easier for you, the agent, to pass the rate conversation to the guy who knows rates in and out. Like if you can get that ball pass, probably that leans into this, setting the expectations early, I would assume that makes a world of difference, right?
absolutely. I mean, from my standpoint, if I'm having a conversation with them 30, 60, 90 days before they buy where rates are at, the shock isn't there when money's on the line. And then you've got a panic client.
Right.
I've got a panic client, and this panic client is now thinking, well, now I've got to pay for appraisal. Now I've got to pay for an inspection. Well, we need a pest inspection. We need radon. Like all these things that we're going to be coming to them and saying we need to do this now because we're in that DD period. At the same time, though, they are panicked and at a loss for what they thought was reality versus what actually is reality.
Well, and bringing up the word appraisal had me thinking about something again that just recently happened at a listing and the value of the local lender. So at a listing, buyers were buying it. They ended up having a lender out of California. I talked to the agent. I'm like, hey, I want to make sure this. Oh yeah, we worked with this guy 100 times. They're great. They're fantastic. All this. Came down to it, their appraisal on a $970,000 house came $15,000 low. And when I ran my comps and I looked at stuff, I'm like, I was way off from what I saw. And it caused extra headaches simply because the agent didn't know the questions to ask. Like we ended up going back and actually got the appraisal relooked at because they were missing comps. And a lot of it was like just having that knowledge base of the value as we stand here, the value of a house over here versus one that might be a half mile down the road that way or that way. Having that knowledge, I think is huge as well.
Absolutely.
I have a couple more questions just because I want to lean into this before we kind of close out.
Yeah.
How early is too early to start the conversation with a buyer?
I mean, I mentioned this client earlier, but I had spoke to a client yesterday who's not buying until next February. And I mean, it's a year-long process. They have steps to do. I don't think any time is too soon. The more information I get a person, the faster, the quicker they're going to be able to make a decision. And the quicker they make a decision, quicker if you need to invest time, resources into that person. If I can answer, in 24 hours, get a soft credit pull application in 24 hours, they know they are $250,000 off from their purchase price reality. Well, unless they are significantly reducing their expectations for that home, they know they're not in that place to buy. And he doesn't have to do a Saturday of 16 showings for someone who's never going to get there financially. I don't believe there's ever too soon. I don't believe also, though, in pushing a client to a complete application if I can get enough information on that call to let them know, hey, from what you're telling me right now, I don't see a path to where you want to go. Very recently, I had a client who told me I'm a year out of bankruptcy. And I said, okay, tell me about what's happened since then. They said, they kind of let me know they've opened credit cards and things like that. And I said, well, since you opened those credit cards, have you had any late payments? Very hard conversation because you're asking, like, no one wants to say, like, yeah, I was 60 days late on a credit card payment. But she did tell me that. And I said, okay, well, right now our priority is establishing positive payment history. And we need that for at least a year, for the next year, before you complete a mortgage application. Just based off guidelines, I know. I said, you can apply, but I don't want you to have to do that to give you the same information that I can give you right now based on what you're telling me. Now, I can't officially deny you until you complete an application or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but if what you're telling me is true, I see the hiccups that we're going to have to hurdle over. So that client's a year at least out. That's a year that you can nurture the client, monitor, do check-ins, things like that. And that's going to solidify his relationship for a year from now. This client says, hey, Rich has been reaching out to me for a year. He knew I couldn't buy, but he still kept up with me. He still sent me information that was useful for me, all those things. I don't see it a time that's too soon.
Then one more question.
Well,
So
can I just jump on that?
yeah, go ahead.
Because just kind of our side of that too, because I love the client who says, I'm not ready yet for this.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a great opportunity for us to really start showing our worth in very small ways.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going through that work. First of all, we're not getting them all fired up about how it's not going to go forward. We're already setting realistic expectations. But through that, we can get them our information, the Tuesday touch point things that are just helping them with different stuff around the house. Or what I do a lot of times is we look at, okay, well, what's our goal here? I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to once a month just send you an update of what homes are currently available, so you can kind of keep an eye on the market and that stuff, so they can see the houses that are working in their price range. Helps them get a little bit more excited when they're doing the work.
Yeah.
We'll even put together itineraries for them and say, hey, your plan is to be in Apex. So here, this is what's going on this weekend. Here, we set up an itinerary for you. Go check out this coffee shop, go do this, and all that fun stuff. And it just gets them excited that we're being a resource and we're not like, let me show you a house and maybe you might, we can magically make this happen. No,
they're a person, not a sale.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're all day with that.
And then one more question. So how important is it in today's market with buyers to offer them options?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. So when a client goes under contract, we have a rule where we have to send 3 different options on how we can set up this loan. It's higher down payment, lower down payment, buy down points, no points, whatever our conversations have relayed to us is important for that client. They need to have 3 different options, A, B, and C, right next to each other, of rate, payment, cash to close. And that oftentimes leads into another conversation where they don't go with any of those 3 options because they weren't thinking about even having that options at the time. They're thinking, well, man, can I only put 5% down? Do I have to put 25% down right now? Like, I really don't want to do this right now, but I thought I kind of had to. I hear a lot of people a lot of people think they have to put 20% down on the purchase. And so when I show someone who applied with 20% down, hey, here's a 15% down, here's a 10% down, here's your 25% down. It really kind of opens the paths and opens the doors for just a further conversation on what they're looking for and what makes sense for them. Because what we see a lot is the conversation we have when they apply and the conversation they have when they're under contract and the numbers are online. It gets a little different because money is real at that point. And we get to address specific concerns that maybe we never even heard before.
Good point.
I like that. That goes right into the who you work with matters. And that's all we're looking to do today. We want to give you guys good information so that we are that resource, that we're making things easier. Any questions on the chat? Any questions locally that we want to, anything we talked about that you guys want to talk a little more about? Anything that might, before we.
Any kind of rate questions at all?
Yeah. Questions about rates, questions about literally anything.
Hi there. How are you?
All right.
Good. This is Jennifer Angel from California.
Hey, California, how you doing?
Yeah. So, I don't know how it is in your market, but we've all seen appreciation, right? Since COVID, since even before COVID. So I always
Yep.
lead with the appreciation part of it. It's like the best time to buy was 30 years ago. The second best time was in 2020 when everyone was afraid. And the next best time is today. And
Yep.
even if it's the market's kind of soft right now compared to a year, 2 years ago, but our values are still higher than they were pre-COVID. So I just show them the numbers and make them realize like, hey, if you're not gonna buy, it's gonna now, even with the 6-7% rate, you're never gonna be able to buy. So
Yep.
sometimes you have to figure out if are they using the rate, like, the rates are high. Are they using it as an excuse maybe? And they're not really motivated to buy. So and so that's one point. The other point I wanted to contribute was that I had this lender once. They have this graphic. It's a graph from, I think it's MBS Highway, that shows that forecasts the appreciation. Like if you buy this house is listed for 700 or $1 million 5 years from now, using the average rate of appreciation, it's going to be this, right? Do you want to buy it now at this price, or do you have that tool too?
We do. It's called the cost of waiting calculator.
Yeah.
It gives you plug it in, gives you specific. You can do by zip code, any of those things, and it gives you the market of expected appreciation.
I always make sure I have that in my open houses so that they see. Because again, you're gonna zoom out a little bit, right? Don't focus on the rate. Focus on the wealth building value of buying real estate.
Yeah, that's really good.
Amazing feedback. Thank you.
I like that.
Back up. Any
What else we got?
questions?
That was another one of those where I was thinking of something good and then I lost it.
If you guys are on the Zoom, feel free to unmute yourself if you want to make a comment, ask a question.
Well, all right, so I was thinking the thing I was thinking about before is I think part of those conversations too. I think it gets easy for us. I don't want to say to be lazy, but to hear the answer that our client gives us and not ask the next question.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of times where I've had clients like, well, I just want to save a little bit more because I want to afford a little bit more. And sometimes we'll look at the numbers, and I'm the first person to say, again, if I could predict the future, I would have bet on the Super Bowl last week and wouldn't be here now. But that being said, like, well, what is your goal? And I had a client once who was like, well, that should get me and it was maybe like another like $10,000-$25,000. When we looked at the numbers and we looked at where that meant, and you looked at the historical growth, and it pretty much meant they were going to buy the same house that they were buying, they could have bought today. They were just going to buy the same house for more expensive. So sometimes it's asking that question too to get past what's the real issue. Like in that sense, it wasn't a number; it was they weren't ready, and we needed to understand why they weren't ready. So keep having ask one more question.
Yeah, every time.
LP said, I'm just listening in. Great info. Thank you.
Thanks, LP.
Appreciate that.
We do appreciate that. Oh, we on? Oh, look at that. We are like
pretty much at the tail end.
Solid.
So yeah, rates don't stop buyers. Unclear conversations do, and I think that's really hopefully what you guys all got out of today. We appreciate that. As you guys said, thank you so much for coming online. Thank you so much for being in the room. We started this off as an in the room thing. We've opened it up to online. Love that you guys came from out of the market to talk to us too. We want to do these all the time. You see the future huddles we have coming up. Second and fourth Wednesday, same time. If you have topics, things that you're like, hey, I'd love to talk about this. I'd love to learn more about this. Send them in to us. We'd love to have some more topic ideas. These are the next ones that we have coming up. What do sellers actually care about and what they don't? That is one of my personal favorites because I feel like there are a lot of people out there who come up with a really cool listing presentation and cool things that they don't actually do. And really focusing your presentation on what can you do, how can you help them based on what's important to them. Whether that's we're getting divorced, we need to sell quickly, or I got plenty of time, I don't mind waiting for top dollar, all that fun stuff. Next, we're going to have the known for something, how top agents get picked. We were having this conversation this morning. For as much as I'm standing in front of a camera for an hour, I'm not one to be like, look at me, look at me, look at me. But we are in a look at me world. So how do we do that? What are the things we can do? For me, I'd rather provide this type of information. People see things, see that we know what we're talking about, know that I work with good people, that type of stuff. But what are you known for? And how does that work for you? And then 12 months after closing that matter most. What do you do? Closing was yesterday. Like when that guy goes to buy a house eventually, how are you being remembered? So please RSVP for them. We'd love to have you guys in the room whenever you can. Again, we're going to keep opening these up to Zoom because we want as many people as possible. Jennifer, tell your friends in California, spread the word. Anything you want to add?
Will do.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you so much for attending, guys.
We appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Would anybody on the chat like the invitation for one of the upcoming ones?
Yes, would love it.
Perfect. We'll make sure we'll send out the links for registration for all the upcoming next 3. You can pick and choose what you want. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
See you on the next one.